Ryan clutched his phone, trying to steady his shaking hands as he filmed the decrepit facade of Bobby Mackey's music world. The October wind whistled through broken windows, carrying decades of whispered warnings. Tomorrow, the bulldozers would come, erasing this legendary honky-tonk and its infamous portal to hell from existence. Guys, I'm having second thoughts about this, Emma whispered, her fingers intertwined with Mike's. Her other hand clutched a small cross necklace, something Ryan had never seen her wear before tonight. We've driven 3 hours to get here, Mike replied, squeezing her hand. His voice carried its usual confidence, but Ryan caught the slight tremor in it. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Place is just full of old drunk stories and rotting wood. Chris kicked a loose stone, watching it clatter against the building's foundation. Bullshit ghost stories, man. That's all this is. But he'd been unusually quiet since they'd arrived, his typical skepticism subdued by the looming darkness of Bobby Mackey's. Lily checked her watch again, 11:47 p.m. Security does rounds at 2 a.m. That gives us 2 hours to explore. She pulled her dark hair back into a tight ponytail, all business despite the fear evident in her eyes. Ryan's throat tightened as he remembered all the stories they'd researched during the drive. Pearl Bryan's decapitated ghost, Johanna's vengeful spirit, and that supposed portal to hell in the basement. He'd laughed about it then, comfortable in the safety of Mike's car. Now, standing in the shadow of the building, those stories felt suffocating. His YouTube feed was filled with professional paranormal investigators running from this place, hardened ghost hunters refusing to return. And here they were, 5 regular kids with nothing but their phones and a borrowed GoPro, about to walk right in. Remember when we used to dare each other to spend the night in that abandoned house on Maple Street? Mike laughed, but it sounded hollow. This is like that, just with better stories. But it wasn't like that at all. Ryan could feel it in his bones. Something was different here. Something was waiting. A sudden gust of wind rushed past them, carrying what sounded like distant piano music. Emma jumped, pressing closer to Mike. Chris cursed under his breath. Lily stopped checking her watch. Last chance to back out, Mike said, pulling a small crowbar from his backpack. We either do this now, or we leave and never know. Ryan looked at his friends' faces, illuminated by the harsh glare of phone flashlights. They'd been inseparable since sophomore year of high school, drawn together by a shared love of horror movies and urban exploration. Now, 5 years later, they were about to explore the most notorious haunted location in Kentucky. The rational part of his brain screamed that it was just an old building. But there was another part, a primal part he couldn't silence, that knew they were making a terrible mistake. Let's do it, Ryan heard himself say, and watched as Mike moved toward the back of the building, leading them all toward their fate. The broken window around back seemed to be waiting for them. Mike worked the crowbar under its rotted frame, the wood giving way with a sharp crack that made them all flinch. As he cleared the remaining glass, his hand caught on a jagged edge. Shit! Mike jerked back, blood welling from a deep gash across his palm. Let me see. Emma pulled a small first aid kit from her purse, always the prepared one. But as she cleaned the wound, Ryan noticed something odd. The blood seemed unusually dark in the flashlight beam, almost black. It's fine. Mike pulled his hand away, wiping it on his jeans. Dark droplets spattered the windowsill and floor, leaving a trail they'd later wish they'd noticed sooner. One by one, they climbed through the window, phone lights cutting through decades of dust and darkness. The main bar area sprawled before them, broken bottles crunching beneath their feet. A mechanical bull lay on its side, rust-eaten and forgotten. The massive dance floor stretched into shadows their lights couldn't penetrate. Check your phones, Lily said, frowning at her screen. I'm losing signal. Ryan glanced at his phone. 1 bar, then none. The others reported the same. It's probably just the metal in the walls, Chris offered, but his voice had lost its skeptical edge. They moved deeper into the building, documenting everything on the GoPro. Emma filmed the ancient bar, its surface scarred by countless bottles and fists. Chris examined old show posters, their edges curled and yellow. Lily photographed the stage where countless country stars had performed. Then they heard it, a soft, melodic tune drifting through the stale air. Tell me someone's playing music on their phone, Chris whispered. Nobody was. The melody grew clearer, an old country song none of them recognized. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Probably just the wind moving something, Mike said, but he was gripping his injured hand tightly, blood seeping through his makeshift bandage. They found the basement door behind the bar. Heavy chains that should have secured it lay broken on the floor, rust flakes scattered like bloody confetti. The darkness beyond the door seemed absolute, swallowing their flashlight beams. "The well's down there," Ryan said, his mouth dry. "The one from all the stories." "The portal to hell," Emma whispered, clutching her cross tighter. Mike laughed, but it sounded wrong, higher and sharper than his usual laugh. "Come on, we didn't come all this way to stand in the doorway." As they descended the creaking stairs, the temperature plummeted. Ryan's phone registered a 20-degree drop. Their breath fogged in the beam of their lights, and an odd smell reached them, like copper and rotting meat. "Jesus, it stinks down here," Chris gagged. "It used to be a slaughterhouse," Lily reminded them, her voice trembling. "Before it was a bar." At the bottom of the stairs, their lights revealed what looked like an old drainage well in the center of the room. Its metal cap lay discarded nearby, rust-eaten holes peppering its surface. Dark liquid stains surrounded the well's edge, too fresh to be from the building's slaughterhouse days. Mike stepped toward it, drawn despite Emma's attempt to hold him back. His injured hand dripped blood onto the well's edge, the drops disappearing into the darkness below. "Mike, don't," Ryan started. But Mike wasn't listening. He was staring into the well, his face illuminated by a faint glow that seemed to pulse from its depths. When he turned back to them, his smile wasn't quite right. "You guys need to see this," he said, his voice carrying an echo that hadn't been there before. The change in Mike was subtle at first. He stood too still, his breathing too shallow, as he stared into the well. Blood continued to drip from his hand, each drop causing that glow to pulse brighter. "We should go," Emma said, reaching for him. "Mike, please." "Why leave?" His voice had a new timbre, like multiple voices layered together. "We haven't seen anything yet." He turned, and in the harsh phone lights, his eyes seemed darker, deeper. Chris stepped forward. "Come on, man, this isn't funny." "Funny?" Mike tilted his head at an impossible angle. "Like those jokes you made on the drive here, Chris? About Pearl Bryan's head? About Johanna's suicide?" His smile stretched too wide, teeth gleaming. They didn't find them funny either. Ryan grabbed Lily's arm, pulling her toward the stairs. "We're leaving. Now." Mike moved with unnatural speed, blocking the staircase. The temperature dropped another 20 degrees. Frost crystallized on the walls. "Nobody's leaving," Mike said, but it wasn't Mike anymore. Blood ran down his arm in rivulets, dripping from his elbow. "We need you all here." "Mike, fight it!" Emma screamed, backing away. "Whatever this is, fight it!" Chris rushed forward, trying to push past Mike to the stairs. "This is insane, let us." The movement was blindingly fast. Mike grabbed Chris by the throat, lifting him with one hand as if he weighed nothing. Before anyone could react, he hurled Chris across the room. The sickening crunch of impact was followed by a wet, gurgling sound as Chris's body was impaled on an old meat hook protruding from the wall. Emma's scream echoed through the basement. Chris thrashed once, blood pouring from his mouth, then went still. "Run!" Ryan shoved Lily toward a dark corridor. Emma was already scrambling into the shadows. Mike, or whatever was wearing Mike's face, laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Yes, run!" The thing in Mike's body called after them. "Make it interesting. Make it fun. Like hide and seek." His voice changed, becoming Mike's normal tone. "Remember when we used to play hide and seek, guys?" Ryan sprinted through the darkness, the beam of his phone light bouncing wildly. Behind him, he heard Mike's footsteps, unhurried but steady. The corridor branched into multiple passages, remnants of the old slaughterhouse. Somewhere to his left, Emma sobbed. To his right, he heard Lily's rapid breathing. "Found one," Mike's distorted voice sang out, followed by Emma's piercing scream. Ryan pressed himself against a wall, trying to slow his frantic breathing. His phone light flickered and died, leaving him in total darkness. The only illumination came from that faint glow, now pulsing through the entire basement like a diseased heartbeat. The screaming stopped abruptly. "Two down," Mike called out, his voice echoing from every direction. "The well is hungry. It's been so long since it was fed, so long since it was given what it needs to open. Ryan heard movement in the darkness, the wet sound of something being dragged. Did you know, Mike's voice was closer now, that it takes 5 souls to break the seal? 5 friends, bound by blood and fear? A pause. Oh, there you are, Lily. Lily's scream was cut terrifyingly short. Tears streamed down Ryan's face as he heard Mike moving through the darkness, whistling that same haunting melody they'd heard upstairs. His only hope was to make it back to the stairs, back to the exit. But as he turned the corner, he saw Mike standing there, covered in his friend's blood, holding his belt in hands that had become something less than human. Last one, Mike smiled, his teeth now clearly fanged. Don't worry, Ryan. You'll all be together again, together in the dark. Mike, please, Ryan sobbed, backing away from his friend. We've known each other since we were kids. Mike's still in here, the thing wearing his face said, stretching the leather belt between its hands. He's screaming. Would you like to hear? Suddenly, Mike's true voice broke through, agonized and terrified. Ryan, run! Oh God, I can feel it inside me, using me too. The voice shifted back to its demonic tone. Such a brave vessel, your friend. His blood was perfect for the ritual, just like yours will be. Ryan turned to run but slipped in a dark puddle, Emma's blood. He crashed hard onto the concrete floor. Before he could rise, Mike was on him. 5 souls, the demon whispered through Mike's lips. 5 souls to break free before they destroy this place. For decades I've waited, watched so many come close, but never the right ones. Never a perfect group bound by friendship, by trust. The belt wrapped around Ryan's neck. Until you came. Ryan clawed at the leather tightening around his throat. Through darkening vision, he saw Mike's face. The last thing he heard was his own neck crushing beneath the belt. The demon wore Mike's body with practiced ease as it dragged Ryan's corpse to the well. One by one, it retrieved its victims, arranging them in a circle around the ancient shaft. Their blood mixed with the stains of centuries. It spoke words in a language older than the building, older than the land itself. The well's glow intensified as each body was pushed into its depths. When the last body splashed into the darkness below, the demon carefully replaced the well cap. It cleaned meticulously, erasing every trace of violence. The possessed body moved with inhuman precision, ensuring nothing remained to tell the story of this night. Dawn approached as it climbed the basement stairs. Mike's body had settled into its new form. It adjusted Mike's clothes, checked his wallet, his phone, a whole life to steal, complete with memories, passwords, and relationships to exploit. The first construction vehicles were arriving as Mike got into his car. In the rearview mirror, a triumphant smile. The demon was no longer bound to Bobby Mackey's. It had a new home now, and so much work to do.